Hi, and thank you so much for popping by. My name is Dr. Bita Pobalozi. Feel free to call me Dr. Balozi or Dr. Bui. In this clip, I'm going to talk about corruption. And that's because most of my content is actually informed by Botswana news coverage. I will stop saying this soon once everybody catches on, right? So, in the first week of June, the current president of Botswana, President Duma Boko, made a clarion call. He made a clarion call and said, I want to stamp down on corruption, right? And in this case, he specifically identified four parastatals in Botswana, which he identifies as some of the entities that would need to have this corrupt culture stopped or eliminated, right? And these four specific parastatals are the Botswana Agricultural Marketing Board, the Botswana Meat Commission, Air Botswana, and Botswana Railways, right? And why do we call them parastatals? Because they are partly owned by government and they also have a part ownership by the public, right? So they are public government partnerships, right? Parastatals, right? I hope I have that right. So he has his eye on these four entities to make sure that he's able to uproot, right, this deeply rooted corrupt culture that he has identified within those organizations. Now, I love this. For one, I stand with any leader. It doesn't matter whether it is the former administration, the current administration, or the future administrations. I myself will stand with any leader that wants to fight corruption. They have my support 100%, right? Now, what I think is interesting about this corruption story is that it's not new, right? This is not a new story. This is a story that has been reported on by Botswana news coverage since 2021 in the former administration, right? And why am I talking about the past in context to the current? Because it tells us just how deeply rooted corruption is within the current system, right? And it explains why Boko is going to have a massive challenge trying to get rid of corruption in these entities, right? Because if this story is coming from 2021, it means that there were previous ministers, previous politicians who were also trying to make these changes at entities such as BMC and BAM, right? They were trying to make these change initiatives, and it seems as if they were not winning, right? If they were winning, we wouldn't be talking about it today. So this means definitely Boko is also going to face a lot of resistance trying to make changes to these particular parastatals, right, or organizations or institutions, right? So I absolutely think that perhaps, perhaps we need to have some kind of incentive, right? They perhaps need to have some kind of incentive to make sure that people who are reporting cases of corruption can maybe see some benefit to it. Because based on what I can read from this story to do with these parastatals, it's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of courage from the people within the organizations who actually have the evidence, who have the receipts hanging, who have the receipts, right? The people who have the evidence of this corruption within these entities are going to absolutely need some kind of incentive, right? They're going to need something to assure them as well that, if you tell us this, you will keep your job, or if you tell us this, you will be protected, or if you tell us this, we can assure you that you will continue to get a livelihood. Because I can see how difficult it would be if you are working at the Botswana Meat Commission, for example, and you have been seeing these corrupt practices happening. And now all of a sudden, there is a call with the new leadership to say, come forth and tell us, give us this evidence, show us what has been happening. It takes a lot of guts, because people are already struggling to survive. So if people are already struggling to survive, somebody is weighing the option. Is it worth telling people about what is happening in the institution? Can I risk my job for this? Right? So these are options people are weighing when they wonder if they should be a whistleblower. Right? So this is why I talk about incentives. People may need to be incentivized just to make sure that they can come forth. They can be encouraged, stimulated to come forth. It's not an easy decision to make. It will never be an easy decision to make. Sorry. And I also write here that, it's important to protect the whistleblowers, right? Whistleblowers are so important to protect, not only in context of preserving that job, but whistleblowers must also be protected in terms of journalism. Because the story with BMC, this information is coming from inside, right? I saw the report where the BMC employers came forth to report and tell the journalists that this is what is happening. And this is why I'm always surprised when, out of nowhere, journalism becomes enemy number one. I'm always surprised by that because, as far as I'm concerned, journalism is the reason we know. Journalism is why we know that this corruption is deeply rooted. It has been ongoing for years, from the previous administration to the new history-making administration. These cases have been reported by news media. The question is what have you been doing when you see these reports on news coverage in Botswana? What have you done, my friend? Have you read the story and thought, hey, Botswana is so corrupt? That's what we do, right? We read the story and we are just like flabbergasted to life, to the point where sometimes we do absolutely nothing. And this is why I have to reinforce in this particular clip, President Boko and his administration cannot fight corruption alone. They need us. They need us as a people. They need us as a people working in these institutions. They need us as a people living in the community to back him up, to back him and his administration up, right? Because corruption will not eliminate itself. And as we can see, and as I'm saying, this story is coming from as early as 2021. And apparently some of these corrupt cartels have been benefiting from this since 2016 to 2018, somewhere there. And these stories are now coming out, right? So the question is, what have you done? Right? And this is why we need to start thinking of solutions that are practical to corruption. What can I do? What can you do? Right? The ones we have a role to play. All of us have a role to play. It's not a one-man show. Corruption is not going to be a one-man show. It is not going to be President Boko's problem, right? It is our problem. We are all in this corruption. And I love the fact that the youth are tired of corruption. And I don't know how the youth can be used to stamp out on these corrupt practices, because there's a lot of energy in the youth right now that is not being used. And this dormant energy, I don't know if it's healthy. Alrighty, my friend, thank you so much for popping by. I hope you're having a lovely day where you are, but most importantly, I hope you're having a healthy day wherever you're watching me from. Bye.